Okay, so this is another aspect of the MMO, part of the game, is that you could have cities, and then on top of that, you could have a sim city, sort of, control over it. You can have a guy who say, okay, well, I'm going to be the mayor, or I'm going to be, the king, the prince of this little, community, and, you got to, handle all the, the stuff that handles, or that's required of it. Otherwise, you just select an NPC and say, guess what, I want you to be the guy in charge of the city. And he'll, there will be a normal AI program that it will go through, and like establishing that. But, you can ultimately decide, well, I'm going to control this, and I'm going to, personally do things, because that way I can get the optimum, ultimate or best, whatever area I need. So each on the game land, you have like the smallest segment of land, which would probably be like where two roads cross. And you imagine, okay, well, that's a segment of land. So, small, or two paths crossed. That's the smallest thing you have. And then the rest of the land is going to be based off of these little, squares. So because of that, if that's the basis, the smallest unit of land, if the player doesn't actually farm. The player, you have to pick a NPC to be the farmer. It's like that way, you don't tie a player down to messing around on the ground like you see in Lord of the Rings. So you essentially create a serf. That serf can basically, at level 1 technology, level 1 resources, whatever, he can produce enough food to take care of himself. There's, the timeline, I'm thinking that maybe that you have a yearly schedule, so you have winter and summer, and then the way you set up the map is, since the map will be square, the further north you are, the more wet, the more precipitation you get. So the further south, less, more dry. There's another aspect, like from east to west. But so that way, essentially, all the map would have all the range of environments. The more precipitation during the yearly schedule from north to south. So you get snow up north, you get nothing down south. But yearly regular rain, goes from east to west. So you have swamps in the east, desert in the west, kind of thing. We have little pieces of land. You can tie a guy to it. That's the serf. And you have to advance his technology level to a certain point where he can produce. He actually is able to create enough food to support more than just himself. And so that's where you can finally start having a community kind of thing. And that's, it goes from there. So in a sense, you can have a farmer who's got all these pieces of land which he monitors, takes care of. He's the NPC. And other players can come in and kill that NPC, or rob him or whatever, or kidnap the guy. And guess what? You have to replace that guy. So that's a neat little trick that you can play in the game. But with that, with the farmers, then you can have the community where you don't have farmers, where all the food goes to. So it's like you have to have a piece of land. Say this is a farmland. It's going to support this community. That's the game speak. Based off of that, how much food you produce is how large of a population you can get in that town. The larger the population, the more you can put into crafts, the more you can put into, guards and this and that. So basically, you support yourself, or you create the specialty areas you want. So this is why the game would really encourage guilds and groups, because to create a community like that, you would need several players working together. And so that's what ideally that's what you'd have. You'd have a little group that ran and controlled controlled everything. It was always constantly there, monitoring, keeping the place safe, reacting to any intrusions from either players or NPCs. And then if a group got started and they realized, well, we can't really start our own community, but we want to start a crafting community and gain money, and from there, then we're going to move into the military. So they would need a community they can move into. They would need a city they can move into, and so hopefully some of these guilds, would have cities that essentially could absorb other groups, and they can operate on top of each other. So that way the economics and the crafting community really starts interacting with each other. A lot more one-on-one player player interaction. And then because you got this going on, you have essentially wealth being exchanged. So you have other players who say, well, I'm going to be a raider. I'm going to take I'm just going to just take things from here and there. And that way, this group of players and that group of players are interacting with each other in that respect. Anybody who plays this game, they can interact they can just choose any path they want and at any time they want. So that's the key thing of it. And then I was thinking the other aspect of it is because they're showing kinships in Lord of the Rings, you can have reproduction occur, and you have heirs that are spawned, and on top of that, you can even decide who you want your offspring to marry to produce other offspring. So that way you can essentially you choose the mate of your offspring, or you choose for your player, your avatar, you choose a mate who hopefully has a lot of good qualities, a lot of good or high stats, and that way the offspring is going to have the mix of the two of your stats and the other NPC stats, and they'll have a higher starting stat area range, and then they're going to have all this experience. And the more money you put into the education of the offspring to, let's say, the age of 15, the more experience points the offspring is going to have, and the more it's going to put you, like when your character dies, or when your avatar dies, and you can assume your heirs, whatever, you can then choose all these stats right off the bat, because in a sense, if he's your kid, you teach the kid what you want the kid to know, so that sort of thing. And because I mentioned the idea of you can have a character die, and people said, oh, permadeath is it's always going to die. Nobody's going to love permadeath, And I was like, well, this is where you get around it. And really, you don't have permadeath. You have the option for to kill a player or to kill an avatar, and that's something that comes with its own risk and rewards. Because if you are known as an assassin, you go around killing players, then people are going to start putting up rewards on your head, kind of thing. And then on top of that, remember each land parcel they have for tracking, because you have paths, like you say, oh, well, there's two people fought right here. This guy died. This guy ran away. So where's the path of this guy going?
See, what I'd like to see is they should always have an option for unlocking an alpha class. Mm-hmm. But that alpha class should always be understood that if you unlock it and you get it and you play it and you die, that's it. It's gone.
Yeah. I like that too, but at the same time, I'm of the opinion if a guy chooses to spend 14 hours a day playing a game because he wants to really beat it, and especially with MMO, don't hinder him. Don't give him less advantage, or don't take away from his advantage of that. That the guy who just wants to do that, because if a guy wants to take over a city or basically rule a city on his own, and he's willing to put in that much effort, let him.
Right, but an alpha class would be a class that they wouldn't have a one-on-one. There would be no equal except that same class. So
yeah.
He should be able to take on 5-6 players.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to have something that powerful, when he dies, that should be it.
Yeah.
It should be dead.
I agree. That's that's.
So that's the risk reward for getting.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know. I'm just of the opinion that you can't tell how high level of a character is unless you you have a high enough whatever skill, like intelligence or skill, and the higher the intelligence, so basically the more down the skill tree of the person you're looking at. You can see. So you can see the guy has all right, defense, but if the intelligence skill's not high enough, you can't see that. Well, the guy's specialized in preventing ambushes, so you can't surprise the guy. When you try to sneak up and ambush the guy, and bam, it doesn't. That roll of the dice doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's just one of the I think would be a neat aspect of gameplay. Is that way you don't have to have special attacks. It's like with Lord of the Rings right now. All I'm doing is I'm clicking on a button. I go into a fight, I go hit 1, hit 2, hit 3, hit 4, hit 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 6 has popped up. Hit 6. Oh, look, 8 has popped up. Hit 8. And then I can hit 9, kind of.